project sectoral reports, and you will see these kind of reports on our website. And the fact that we were able to get together 200 plus leaders to, come together in small sectoral communities and put together, such amazing research, we're grateful to all of them. Now, those of you who are joining us for the first time, we started in quarter 4 of 2020, and when we embarked on this Impact Future project, our mission was clear. From our vantage point, we saw capitalism around the world quickly evolving to what we call impact capitalism, wherein impact, the measurable effect of our actions on people or planet, had become an economic concept like risk, return, and was getting embedded in all decisions: business, investment, consumption, policy. And for those of you who are not yet familiar with this concept, of an impact economy, here is a framing that'll be very helpful. So think of that: if 19th century was all about return and 20th century about risk and return, 21st century is about risk, return, and impact. And just like we learned how to measure risk in the middle of last century, we are learning how to measure impact as we evolve. And this evolution, we realize, is not going to be easy for all. We looked at a lot of data. We saw top 35 Indian companies had $200 billion in just environment cost, 3 times their net profits. How could companies like these compete in an era of impact capitalism and impact accounting? We all realize that this DNA's change is going to take time. So we took on ourselves this audacious task of saying, hey, let's make everyone in India Inc. aware of this imminent journey on a 3-step impact continuum, from ESG to sustainability to impact. And so we got together these communities and started, publishing these ideas so that people start figuring out what can they embrace and how can they further catalyze the movement. So these 8 sectors in this, big box that I've showed you, there are reports on finance, education, health, agriculture, energy, WASH, disabilities, and each group had 20 plus leaders. So first of all, I must thank all our community leaders who are here today. Our 3 co-chairs, Reema Nanavati, Sushma Kaushik, and Sairi Chahal, who led these discussions. You're going to shortly hear from all of them. And collectively, they identified 10 ideas that we have, put together here. These include women-owned MSMEs, consumer product apps, creative enterprises, credit and lending, savings and investment, social platforms, marketplaces, insurance, microinsurance, transportation and mobility, and then women training, incubators, accelerators. Across these 10 ideas, I think there are 4 themes which are unmissable. One, you will see as you read the report that clearly women power is rising. Women-owned MSMEs are up from 13 to 20% in the last decade. There's women influence on consumption decision is up to 85% now. Women growth in education, 18% growth in female enrollment in higher education. And this is underlying all these trends that we have, reported. Women finance is rising at $29 billion. And this is not a symbolic diversity move, it's a structural shift. Women's social platforms and marketplaces are rising, and you'll shortly hear from Sairi Chahal, who's a living testimony to this. And finally, FemTech is rising, and our report outlines that consumer product, apps, health, hygiene is going to cross $100 billion in revenues by 2030. So this research report, in many ways, is an uprising of investing in women with a staggering 170 billion opportunity between 2020 and 2030. So we can't wait to get all of our co-leaders and co-chairs talk to you. And before I hand this over to Neha to run this thing, there are a couple of other thanks I must offer. One to Capgemini, our sponsoring partner. Another to Traction, our data partner. You'll see at the end of the research report a table of 400 great startups, and so this is no longer theory. And finally, we have Daily Hunt, which is a media partner for this event. So this report has many firsts, including this theme by theme forecast up till 2030, people impact, job creation. And it was a mammoth exercise over the last 15 months. So thank you all very much. Neha, over to you, and let's get the findings rolling.
Thank you, Amit. Well, I will now request our esteemed co-chairs of the FemTech community, Ms. Sairi Chehel, founder and CEO at Shiros and Mahila Money, and Ms. Sushma Kaushik, partner at Avishkar Capital, to present the findings of this report. But before that, our community leader, Dr. Shilpa Sehgal, partner at Equanimity Investments, will take us through the market overview. So Shilpa, over to you for this segment.
Thank you, Neha and Amit and the Aspire Group for giving me this opportunity today. And it is my privilege today to present the opening segment for the launch of the Iafp FemTech report. Over the last 12 months, we as a community have been deliberating and brainstorming many ideas have been for women inclusiveness and empowerment. These concepts and deliberations have been based on a lot of data and trends in the overall ecosystem. The numbers are so compelling that they cannot be ignored. In fact, we believe that these numbers will have a huge impact on the future of FemTech in the coming decade. Today, I will be touching upon two broad areas, one being women in India's workforce and the other being the significance of the GNDR ideas. Coming to the first point, according to the World Bank estimates, India has one of the lowest female labor force participation rates in the world. Not only are we the lowest, but this number has been falling. The 15-year period starting 2005 shows that this number has dropped from a 26% to 20%. With a huge population base that our country has, and 50% of them being women, even a small tweak in this percentage can cause a huge uptick in India's GDP. Coming to our very vibrant startup ecosystem, it has a similar story to tell. Though India globally ranks third largest in the number of unicorns, the participation of women at the leadership level is very, very low. We have about 88 unicorns, and these are founded by 136 founders. But it is surprising to know that only 5 of them are females. In the listed space as well, 2019 and 2020 data shows that there was only one woman CEO in the Nifty 50 companies. I think all this clearly shows that we have a very long way to go as far as inclusiveness of women in India's workforce is concerned. Coming to the GNDR ideas, I think it's a known fact that these GNDR businesses will clock huge investments and bring in a lot of revenues for India in the next 8 to 10 years. But the interesting point to be noted is that the top 10 ideas which have been shortlisted by our report and which will be presented by Sushma and Sairi in the upcoming segment have a lion's share in this opportunity set. I'd like to present some numbers which are eye-popping. The top GNDR ideas by 2030 will catalyze USD 325 billion in investments, USD 877 billion revenues. These businesses will touch upon 1.3 billion lives and create 190 million jobs. The point I'm trying to make is that we have a huge opportunity on hand. And just by focusing on the top 10 ideas, which has been presented by this report, we can capitalize on this opportunity. I'd now like to invite Sushma, followed by Sairi, to give you more details on these top 10 ideas. Over to you, Sushma.
Thanks, Shilpa, and thanks, Amit and Neha and the entire Aspire Circle group for putting something like this in place. When I first heard about the term FemTech, it was a unique term, and I think it was specifically coined by the Aspire Circle because industry still hadn't heard of a word that was coined like this. But it's great, and kudos to all of you for putting it out there and making this a recognized sector. So very quickly, we have been deliberating this space for a while, and the report very well articulates and captures some very interesting data points. And Shilpa also talked of the kind of numbers that we are seeing, which is staggering, right? And the fact that women have generally been ignored part of the population is surprising in itself. But when we had to pick the top 10 opportunities that could really further the way women are viewed either as consumers, as entrepreneurs, or as employees. This is what we came up with. And so very quickly, I'll walk you through 5 of the ideas that we came up, and Seri will go on to explain the other 5. So one we identified was women-owned and co-owned enterprises. And, you know, we went through a lot of data points and studied a lot of these companies. Ransutra was a portfolio company of Avishkar Capitals. Similarly, we have many such companies, and I will go on to say this, that the quality of businesses that we have seen women entrepreneurs build is one that is high on integrity and not exclusivity.
Los Angeles, Israel, mother God.
Please continue. Sushma, you've been muted. Sorry, Sushma. Can someone unmute? I think there's some disturbance and someone's trying. Okay. Let me, how do we? Yes.
Yes, Sushma. Yeah.
Perfect. Right. So coming back to women-owned and co-owned enterprises, we have found that most of the MSMEs, a significant part, are actually led and owned by women. However, they find it extremely difficult to access capital, whether it is debt or equity. Equity itself has multiple challenges, but even access to debt capital has been very, very challenging for women entrepreneurs. And so the only way to rectify this problem is to ensure that there is significant awareness of these kind of enterprises. And we've seen that it could become a billion-dollar opportunity. As I said, about 70% of MSMEs are being run by women entrepreneurs. This is touted to be about a $14 billion opportunity by 2030, as per the report, and has tremendous capacity to create jobs and also the livelihoods that it could potentially impact. Moving on to the second big opportunity was in the space of consumer products and in insurance and micro-insurance and insurtech for women. Again, something that we found was once women come into the workforce and they start seeing some kind of employment opportunities, there's definitely going to be savings. Women are going to take control of the kind of savings that they will be doing and the kind of investments that they will be allowed to do. And so that will require very specific products and platforms for them to do that. This again could become a $12 billion market. And currently, when we went through scores of data, we found it very hard to even find one enterprise that is focusing in this space on insurance and insurtech for women. Micro-insurance is a very novel concept. It's yet to see traction, but it's really sad that, you know, there is yet a product to be developed for women by women. And hopefully by 2030, when more women come into the workforce, there will demand for these products going forward. Transportation and mobility, it's a no-brainer. We are seeing that as more women come into the workforce, they need to get out of their homes. They need safe infrastructure and mobility solutions for them to do that. Not everywhere do you get, mass transport systems unless you are in a big metro. And so someone who is solving for this problem could create a big game changer. While, of course, the report talks of a $6 billion investment opportunity, this could be a very high impact outcome, because once you get more women out there who are in more safer ways of coming out to work, that's when you will start seeing the trickle-down effect that we could see in our economy. Then, of course, health, wellness, and hygiene. There is enough empirical evidence to show that once women start earning and saving, they start spending more on themselves, who otherwise do not do that. And the first few things that they look for is on hygiene and health and wellness for themselves, because most women understand that if they are fit, the family is fit, right? So, and that is seen to be a large opportunity. It's pegged at about $3 billion of investment opportunity by 2030. The kind of jobs this space could create is large, and the livelihoods impacted is exponentially higher than what one can imagine. And finally, coming to the women training incubators and accelerators, it's a very interesting asset class, so to say, because as we said that, once women become financially independent, they will require upskilling of how they want to manage their finances, or even for entrepreneurs. There are lots of these incubators, accelerators, mostly focused on male entrepreneurs, which is absolutely fine. But I think there should be these kind of platforms that are focusing on women entrepreneurs as well, and upskilling women entrepreneurs in enabling them to become more mainstream. And these, while again, something that is very, very nascent, something that's just taking off. But we see that there are some very interesting platforms out there, and we do hope to see them reach significant scale and critical mass as we start moving forward. Thanks, Amit. Thanks, Neha, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Sushma. Sairi will take on the next segment.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Super. So, really excited to be here. In some ways, everything I've done and believed in all my life is kind of consolidated in this report. A lot of my thought process and, of course, conviction on things that I have personally worked on. So before I, sort of quickly go into the report, I think just some context to how at least I think about it and what we found out. So I think India is a leapfrog nation. We know this, and I know we have historically been what I call a gender poor nation, because women have been on the lower end of all our indexes, and we're also when every time the global gender rankings come out, we're at the bottom of the pile. But in some ways, we've been making some leapfrogs which have impacted women positively. One is what I call women's internet, and I think that is massively a catalyst to get here. Second is, of course, our entire payment stack, our the India stack that we put in place. So while these stacks and growth of internet and growth of mobility is gender neutral, and women still have a long way to go there, it's been one of the biggest catalysts of women's impact both on the economy and on the women directly. So that said, I think in all the sectors that we cover are what I call productive sectors. They're all good for environment, they're good for human capital indicators, and they are also sectors that are massively fundamentally profitable. I think those are some interesting sort of takeaways. And of course, once one matches that to what is it that we're seeing all around us. Of course, we saw the Nike IPO, and that's something that we've always believed in, that women-led consumption is the best kind of growth lever a country can have, because you're going to see a lot more value being created. And I think this has historically been demonstrated many times. We are also seeing rise of social commerce, which is $100 billion opportunity in itself. And we have seen likes of not only Meesho in India, but also companies like Elenos and Latam come through in a very clear way. D2C is another enabler where, we run a D2C line of business, and 70% of brands in D2C have a woman founder or have a woman co-founder. And that itself is a massive indicator of both these points, consumption and production, both led by women. And I think these are all massive opportunities, especially when we look at impact at scale, at a right there. And the next thing that we are seeing is, of course, we've been hearing about creative economy, creators economy for a long time. And guess what? I think one of the most positively impacted part of users is women. At Shiro's, we see this very, very closely playing out. And of course, we see it also playing out when we talk to other creator platforms. So whether it is video platforms, writing platforms, poetry platforms, or platforms related to ethnic arts, to local creators, to handlooms, I think there's a massive, massive lever of growth that has gone under-recognized in a massively industrial mindset that we all come from historically. But this report led us to believe that these are white areas in terms of both the kind of impact they can generate, but also highly profitable areas. And I know the report doesn't have Web3, but when I think of this space, I think Web3 is also going to marry beautifully both with the creators economy led by women, and of course communities, which has been again a historical leverage point and vantage point for a lot of women-owned businesses. I think in some ways it's history meets future happening right in front of our eyes, and of course we will all be here to watch it as it plays out. So yeah, I think and of course the thread that's common to all those sectors is that all of them are on an upward swing. Some are smaller than others, but all the sectors that we came across are sectors where there's a lot of creativity, and there's a lot of acceleration happening, thanks to either market forces or thanks to the ecosystem. So thank you for making us a part of this, Amit and Team Aspire. Very excited for this to play out.
Thank you, Sairi, and Sushma, and thank you, Shilpa. Well, our next section is an interactive dialogue with the community leaders of the FemTech community at Iafp. I would like to begin this section by first extending our heartfelt thanks to the journalists, participants, and the public for the overwhelming number of questions that we received both on our website and social media platforms from you in the last week. Well, we have taken many questions from those received, and we will engage the FemTech community leaders in an interactive dialogue shortly. I request the audience to send your questions to us via the chat box or personally to me for the Q&A session immediately, which will be after this interactive dialogue. I believe that by participating in this webinar, we are in the right place and at the right time. Together, let's accelerate the exchange of ideas and scaling up of good practices. So with that, I will start the questions that I have received. And I would also request all of my community leaders to restrict their answers and responses to 2 minutes to be able to get to all the questions. So may I begin with Pooja Marva, the CEO of CRY. Pooja, let's start off addressing the naysayers who point to common statistics showing that just or 20% women-owned enterprises, and right of the you see in women uprising in commerce.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question, Neha? You got cut off a little bit. Hello?
Yes, sure.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
So, sure, there are statistics showing that. Are you able to hear me?
Just barely, Neha.
Let me just copy. Okay, Pooja, shall I copy and paste the question for you on the chat box? Will that be better?
I heard it, Neha. I'll ask on your behalf. So Pooja, I think the question Neha was asking was that there are a lot of naysayers who will look at all the statistics which show that India is not doing well on most women gender indicators, and therefore find this little bit of revolution in commerce that we are seeing, which this report is hard to believe. So how would you kind of try and convince these naysayers that there is indeed this positive trajectory?
So, two things, first of all, I just believe that sometimes the numbers in India by themselves can be outstanding, right? Even if we are saying 20% women are able to use the internet, if you look at a population of 1.541 billion, that is a large number. Yeah. And change always comes incrementally. Is my very strong belief. All you require to swing is a small percentage of people who kind of tend to pull that whole demographic up. So that's why you talk about building leadership in marginalized communities of various kinds, right? And if we look at gender indicators in India, perhaps sadly, we will have to admit that the gender is marginalized in many ways. So I think that the numbers are really coming from possibly increasing education in the middle classes, which is leading to young women getting into both tech as well as becoming entrepreneur. And it is really surprising every day how you meet women who have, for example, previously been housewives, have now started something and don't ever want to go back. Don't ever want to be dependent again. So I think that, yes, of course, we have a long way to go, but every step matters.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pooja. Aparajita, if you're still there, can I pose the next question to you? Aparajita is a Director Strategy Value for Women. Is Aparajita there?
I don't see her.
All right, no worries. Then I'll just move to the next one. Okay, so Ranjana Khanna is the Director of Outreach, Impact Investors Council. My apologies. So Ranjana, here's a question that got sent to me for you. Impact investing in women with the recent 2X DFI challenge is taking the main stage. Are Indian impact investors responding to this DFI challenge?
Thanks, Neha. There are no straightforward answers for this one, honestly. Of course, we see a lot of increased orientation towards gender-based investing, and also implementation of gender-based metrics in some of the more evolved impact investors in the country, in the ecosystem. And of course, the talks have initiated across the board, across other impact investors as well. But whether that has converted into more women-focused enterprises getting funding, maybe too early to say that. I mean, speaking simply in terms of numbers, in a recent report by Impact Investors Council, where we analyzed the investment trends of the year gone by, what we witnessed was that out of every 5 organizations which received funding in 2021, only one of them was a women-founded organization. And now, and this is this ratio of 1:5 has been sort of static in the last 3 years, like 2019, 2020, and 2021. So despite the efforts and orientation, what we see, it looks like that this number is not, say, moving upwards. But let's put things in a little bit of a perspective here, before I comment on either the positive or the negative. I would say that this analysis of ours, looks at only women-founded organizations, because we right now do not have that sort of data to analyze, whether other aspects of gender parity in these organizations is there or not, or whether the products or services are also gender focused or not. So this number itself could be not fully representative of of the gender forward investment, especially in the impact investing ecosystem. So, I mean, other important point I think which I would like to make here is that, you know, the time period which we are analyzing is largely, I think, you know, I mean, exists with the pandemic. So, you know, 2019 being the base year, 2021 and 2020 and 2021 have been the pandemic years. So I think other way to look at it is that, you know, despite the pandemic, this, you know, ratio has not worsened. You know, we would like to believe that there is an increased orientation and consideration about gender-based factors in the overall, you know, impact investing ecosystem. Whether, you know, it is the Charity Ventures who, you know, got qualified for a 2X challenge, or organizations like Avishkar and Erivar, you know, who've shown, like, demonstrated, you know, leadership in gender parity, or, you know, a Caspian who have, you know, implemented gender metrics across the board. And recently, you know, USAID has also committed an additional $5 million for supporting funding to women-led enterprises in the healthcare sector through their blended finance initiative. So I think we see things changing for the better, but there is no quick fix to the issue. There could be bottlenecks at you know, other points in the entire value chain, and it will take time for the entire you know, investment value chain to show results. So I hope that answers. I'm sorry if I overshot the time.
No, thank you, Ranjana. That was nice. And now I will request to ask a question to Chetna Sinha. Chetna is the founder of Mandeshi Bank. So Chetna ma'am, the estimated annual requirement for financial support to women-owned enterprises in India is USD 29.16 billion, while the annual supply of credit is only USD 9 billion. Amongst financial institutions, who do you feel is best placed to bridge this gap?
Yeah, so thanks for Neha. And also I was seeing the report, so it is just I would also congratulate Amit and Neha for this report and the initiative in the investment of women-owned businesses. The question is directed like, who is the best institution to address that, right? And I would just say that before answering the question, the one thing which comes to my mind is that when we talk about microfinance in India, microcredit particularly, and you see that to whom it has been given, all women, right? JLG, everything, it's all given to women, and it is $30 billion industry. And now when it comes to micro enterprise, the graduation from microcredit to micro enterprise, why it has not happened? The obvious question, another question come in my mind. And the third question which comes, as in the report also, it was clearly mentioned, right, that all the ratios. And in 2018, World Economic Forum, and I was chairing World Economic Forum, in that year, WEF came up with the report that it will take 135 years to bridge the gap, a gender gap. Now, the question to me was like having 6 co-chairs at World Economic Forum in 2018. The gender gap report says it will take 135 years. All of us who are here, do we want to wait for so long? I mean, these are the questions which are like, on one side, you have so many success stories and we glamorize those stories, even if it is with Mandeshi Bank. But on the other side, these are the things which actually makes us not only just uncomfort, but when will it happen? So the answer to the question which you are asking, Neha, I feel that when we are saying who will bridge it, I mean, I can say, being a part of the BRICS Bank has like women-led alliance committee should bridge, and we are trying to launch the fund from the BRICS Bank side, where it will work for can we create a guarantee fund for the banks to provide the capital to micro enterprise? Is in trying hard, had a meeting with Mr. Kamath for that. But I always also think that something like NABARD will have to come. That for farmers, NABARD was created by regulator to address this challenge. And in similar way, I see that SIDBI is there. Why can't, and then the money is there. It's not that money is not there, as you mentioned here in the question. Money is there. So then why it is not happening? And I'll very briefly say that all these institutions, it's not a question of just providing an access to credit or capital, creating that ecosystem. So number one, first time borrowers, how can we bring their CIBIL rating? And how can we get into the mainstream sector? How is it possible? So if all these institutions, either it is small finance bank or it is bank like Seva and Mandeshi or Mahila Money, if we come together and say that, okay, we will give first time loan or a capital to a person who is taking loan first time, get her CIBIL rating in the ecosystem. So her data is on the public platform. She is eligible for credit, right? In the similar way, I've been telling SIDBI that you cannot ask a CIBIL rating to for these women who are asking for loan. What is your CIBIL rating? What is your high mark rating? You cannot ask these women, because you are not a depositor taking institution. You are getting money from the government. Take risk and give the loan to them. So I feel that whole approach has to be there. And I do feel that the way Nachiket More committee came up and we found out the solutions, right, for the micro financial inclusion, payment banks are required, small finance banks are required, all those. In the similar way, I think, Amit, we have to just make the regulator present this report to the regulator and say that now this is a phase that something has to be required in a very aggressive way, that especially banks for women. And I'll end here that with the saving, which Shushma made a very important point, Shushma, that how saving is important. I know Rima Ben will totally agree with me. We have done that in Maharashtra. We are partnering with the postal bank. And we are saying that each and every woman, her account number and UID will be linked. We will work with postal bank so that she comes on another digital platform. And so she can access the savings on the digital platform. Unless we do that, it will be difficult in this vast country to do. So we started with digital, these banks, Sakhis and postal department, but get them on those public platforms which they are invisible. So for that, those institutions are required who will bring them on this platform. And the second, to give access to capital and credit, something like BRICS, something like NABARD should be created. And lastly, again, I know, Amit, you can do that. Get regulators, present this report to regulators and say something urgent has to be done. And this, Neha, Amit, the report can create that urgent need with the regulator that something has to be done, and we can involve players like SIDBI and all others. So I would stop here, Neha. Thank you.
Great idea, Chetna. We should all be even writing about this. A specialized development bank is a great idea. SIDBI did this, became anchor LP for many, venture capital funds. If there was a specialized women development bank funding GPs or enterprises directly, I think that could help bridge this gap. But thanks for that suggestion. Neha, back to you.
Thank you, Amit. And thanks, Chetna ma'am. We hear the passion and definitely very valid points made. 135 years is too long. So my next question is to Kanta Singh. Kanta is the country program manager for UN Women. So Kanta, at UN Women, how are you supporting this growth of private sector investing in women?
Thank you, Neha, and thank you, Amit. It's a wonderful report, and I'm really honored to be part of the whole process. See, I have seen the relationship with private sector changing in last 15 years that I have been with the UN system. Earlier, for us, private sector used to be there. This is one of the partners, one of the stakeholders we used to get, with. But last 10 years have been very, very important for us to redesign, restructure our relationship with private sector. Now we have a couple of things that we do with private sector, and it has from, other than the government, this is the second most important partner we have, and that's the private sector. So we, at UN Women, we have something called Women Empowerment Principles that we work with. And private sector companies are signing up for WEPs. There are 7 principles on which private sector companies are required to sign, and that also includes hiring of women. So what is it that they're doing within the companies that is leading to gender equality? Hiring more women, retaining them there, leadership positions, sourcing, value chains, and number of, there are 7 of them. So that's one area of engagement with the private sector, and that also brings money closer to women and women closer to the private sector. Funding definitely for various programs that we no longer have funding from our headquarters, and we rely on local resources, and private sector forms major part of that. We also have recently started, and I was talking to Amit the other day, we are talking about impact financing or innovative financing models that cannot be funded without private sector, gender bonds, livelihood bonds, and private sector has to be part of that. That's a new area of work. Advocacy and ideas that we work together with the government. For example, through FICCI, I'm heading a skill committee within FICCI on women's employment, labor force participation. So we do engage with private sector on those critical issues that impact women, also funding. Some innovative ideas like what Chetana ma'am was saying, how do you fund women's enterprises? There have not been enough resources available to women entrepreneurs. And we are trying to come together with several such organizations, and we are constantly talking to people who are in this space to make money available to women. But other than money, one thing that I wanted to kind of share here is that money, of course, is major part of the work that women, or major necessity that women have. But in addition to that, women also need hand-holding support to start enterprises and expand businesses. And I think we need qualified people, trained people who can give them that information, give them support when they need it, whether it is related to GST, registration, legal advice, or tax-related information. Women really don't know how to go about it. They don't generally trust outsiders for that. And I think as a system, as an ecosystem, we need to provide women those services. So I think my time limit is 2 minutes. So I'll stop here, but I am available for any other question. Thank you, Neha. And thank you, Amit.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kanta. So I'll project my next question to Soumya Suryanarayanan. Soumya is the Impact and ESG lead at Avishkar Capital. So Soumya, at Avishkar last year, you dedicated your annual report to women, which was wonderful. What has been the overall result of your pioneering actions?
Thank you, Neha, and many congratulations to Amit, to Aspire, to you as well for publishing such a wonderful and required report. I'm so happy to be part of this, as a community leader. To answer your question, see, diversity and inclusion has always been very core to Avishkar Group's mission. With the publication of the Group Impact Report, we realized our journey has just started, and we are making conscious efforts to build an institution that is gender neutral by 2030. And this commitment comes from the leadership to take this up not just within the Avishkar Group, but also the companies we invest in or associated with. And we believe in walk the talk as an institution. So we formed a working group that has representatives from across the Avishkar Group companies to understand the areas that are working well for us and the areas that require intervention to help us take actions. I'm also very, very delighted and happy to share that Avishkar is the first fund in Asia to qualify under the 2X Challenge flagship initiative led by the development institutions. And this comes at an opportune time where Avishkar is not just taking diversity commitments internally within the institution, but will also see how we can influence our portfolio companies on diversity related matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Soumya. So I'll take my next question to the founder of NutriWealth Health, Dr. Shikha Sharma. So Dr. Shikha, in 2019, only 11% of seed funding capital in emerging markets like India went to companies with a woman on their founding team, as well as only 5% of all later stage funding. How can women raise more money effectively?
Thank you for asking me this question, and I must congratulate Amit Bhatia. I think this is a fabulous report. I was very quickly trying to go through some of the pages. I think the first thing I would say is that building more awareness. See, when microfinance started, and there was research reports with data saying that when women get money, they spend it well, and the entire family is getting benefited. So there is a benefit which trickles across the society, and unless someone had noticed and measured, it would have never come out. So I think more and more reports are required with data, with statistics, because at the end of the day, we must be practical that when people put in money, they want hard data to validate or verify that have they done the right thing. So once these reports with verified data and statistics come out, that it's not only about the number, the revenues which have grown, but it is also a multi-pronged approach to lift the society out of a lot of other financial issues. So I think these things would be number one. Number two, I also feel that in the wider media, women entrepreneurship, women-led companies, all these have to get featured more, because at the end of the day, when we don't see enough women being talked about, even funds get nervous, and nobody wants to take that level of risk if they don't see enough people being highlighted. So I think awareness generation, reports, and of course policies. These things can go a long way to changing the whole dynamics of women in business, women in positions, and women in policy.
Thank you, Dr. Shikha. So I will take my next question to Archana Joshi, Director of Deepak Foundation. So Archana, the FemTech movement with health, wellness, and hygiene apps and products is catching the urban women mindset. As you work with rural women, what difference do you find in the urban and rural consumption in terms of women health, wellness, and hygiene?
Thank you, Neha. My compliments to you and Amit to bring out this report. In terms of the differences between the rural and urban, the urban women are spoiled for choices, access to internet services, finance, cash, and transportation, and all other things. Whereas there's a big need in the rural area. There is a demand and there's an untapped market that one could really tap, and this is the right time to do it. Unless an emphasis is given to promote, will be too late. Because I do remember when we did a survey of skilling women in health and beauty product, we thought of doing a very quick survey in a very remote tribal area. And in a very small catchment population, there were about 42 beauty parlors. So there is a demand. Second is the perception. While you see the differences in the product and the requirement of rural and urban, the perception of health and wellness in the urban market is extremely diverse from the demands in the rural markets. For example, while women in the urban area looking for yoga, typical diets that are available in the market, but when you look at the perception of health foods in the rural and tribal area, they still go for traditional concepts and products which are available locally. They still go for products which are high in fat, milk, sugar, unlike those in the urban markets. This is because of the drudgery and the type of work. One is sedentary and the second is heavy and moderate work categories, which requires health, wellness, as well as hygiene product. Coming to the hygiene product, again, there are few choices and access to the market. So I think this is the time where some support is required. I did hear the discussion that we need to have something like NABARD, but to help women, support women groups and women enterprises. But I personally feel that, the CSR markets, the CSR funds could be tapped to support women entrepreneurship programs and startups. And there are states that are coming up, but again, much of the startup support, even in CSR, are to the male-led, because your profitability and the chances of making profit is much higher, and they see women as a lesser competitor in this setup. The third thing is about the unpaid, the work labor force participation. Much of the women work is unpaid, seen as unpaid family work because of the seasonal engagement in the entrepreneurship markets. So again, it doesn't count, and there is a lack of a steady flow of income, unlike those in the full-time engagement of entrepreneurship in the urban areas. So this is the difference in the product category and demand that I see. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Archana ji. That was well said. So we are running a little bit out of time, so I'll request all my leaders to please be a little bit more concise if it's at all possible. So my next question is directed to Suchitra Marva, the director at Aspire Education. So Suchitra, the size of creative goods and services exports from India grew from US $7.5 billion in 2005 to 20 billion in 2015. How can women catalyze the domestic market with creative enterprises?
Thanks, Neha. So I'll begin by throwing more light on creative enterprises. Creative enterprise infuses innovative content, finance, tech, and sustainability elements in arts, design, and media to solve social and environmental problems while engaging people in communities. There are quite a few women-focused creative enterprises, as mentioned in the report. For example, a startup called Feminista, which is a media platform that supports Indian women achievers to empower women to work. Another example is Menstrupedia, which is a comic that is a guide to educate young girls in India on menstruation. A startup called Ordinary offers latest lifestyle news about women's lifestyle, opinions, reviews in Hindi. Another startup called Fashion Lady, which is a fashion blog in India. It covers the latest trends, news, Bollywood fashion. So before COVID-19 hit, the global creative economy was growing fast in certain regions. I feel this momentum should not be lost. In fact, greater investment needs to flow to the creative industries that have the potential to make high impact at the domestic level. An example highlighting this is Aina by CTOK, a social enterprise that aims to provide sustainable livelihoods to craftspersons from Kashmir by bringing the creators to an online platform. This is accessible by all. So survey after survey shows that women influence 85% of purchase decisions. We have to encourage women to focus on creative enterprises, which will ultimately address the gender justice SDG. Also, I'd like to say this has been a wonderful learning experience for me personally, and I'd like to thank the whole of the Impact Future project team. Thank you. Thanks, Neha. Over to you.
Thank you, Suchitra. Well, I'll quickly ask a question to Sushma Kaushik, the partner at Avishkar Capital again. So Sushma, the consumer products and apps was our second biggest investment idea with $100 billion investment opportunity. As a part of an angel network, what kind of business plans and ideas are you seeing?
Thanks, Neha. No, this is a very interesting question. And while I've been actively part of many of these angel networks, in the past, as I mentioned, it was largely male-driven enterprises. Even when they had co-founder women, they would never come to the forefront. But what I've been seeing in the last 12 to 18 months, more and more women are finding their voice and coming to the forefront and explaining what they're working on. And some of them are really working on some fantastic products and services. So an area where I have seen a disproportionate number of women participation as entrepreneurs is in the D2C space. And as Sari also mentioned, on the creative content space as well. They are also focusing on women as customers also. So I guess it takes a woman to build for a woman, and that's what these entrepreneurs are focusing on. And the kind of vision with which they are building their products, they see like 5-10 years down the line how they want to grow their business. It's not like one of those flip kind of investments. They're saying we'll build to sell to, say, a Flipkart or someone, right? They really want to build sustainable businesses. They see this as their legacy, that they're creating something big. And D2C, it could be in the food space, it could be in health and wellness, it could be in personal care, you name it, and they are everywhere. So it's not any one specific sub-segment in the D2C space, but they're all using digital as a channel. They're all using internet. So yes, I did hear someone saying that, it's very easy for urban consumers to build products for the urban consumer, easier to access, and it's little difficult in rural areas. But I do believe that, there is a lag effect, but they will eventually catch up. And for sustainable businesses, you clearly need to have a large market. And when we say market, we mean people who are willing to pay for something, right? And so clearly it's the urban areas that we see this. But eventually we do know that once you get the economies of scale, you're able to bring down your costs. And once you're able to bring your costs, you can access wider markets. And that's when these things will move into rural areas as well. So that's something that we're seeing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sushma. So I will close this very fast now, but I'll just quickly ask a question to Sairi, and then I'll request Seema Chaturvedi, a partner at Funds, to close this for us. So Sairi, Indian women are estimated to spend around $200 billion annually offline on household goods by the year 2025. How are you trying to bring the spend online, as only 5% women appear to be transacting online?
Great question, Neha. I think two things will drive this, and we are already seeing the trends. One is, of course, the digitization of payments. I think India payment stack is inevitable. We saw a massive rise in the number of not only women who run their bank accounts online, but also use payment methods like UPI. So again, we're leapfrogging from credit cards to not having to use one into payment methods like UPI, and clearly this is happening. And of course, the subtext to this is that there is a massive trend where investments in financial services for women very, very specifically are happening. We see that at home with Mahila Money as well. And second is, of course, women become producers. I think for these spends to move online, we know that both consumers and producers have to be on the same platform. And look, all of India, especially in a post-pandemic, this is the biggest mobility barrier break that has ever happened. And this is unstoppable. The growth of social commerce, growth of payments, growth of financial services, and of course, growth of women who are producers and not just consumers. So all of this is on track. Sooner or later, it's inevitable.
So thank you very much, Sairi. Seema, are you there? And would it be possible for you to just tell us how your journey has been at Iafp and FemTech, and any takeaways?
Yes, thank you so much. And what a wonderful forum. Thank you for inviting me. As for those who might not know us, we are of Funds. We've been told we are India's #1 gender lens focused fund. We drive in innovation that promotes gender equity. From a journey standpoint, the discovery has been we are very much at an inflection point, and catalyzed by COVID. The one positive that unfortunately in the stark reality of all the tragedy that has happened is the fact that digitization has been driven to greater heights. What does that mean from a standpoint of access to capital or even driving gender parity is the fact that we can now look at tech-enabled businesses that are consciously and intentionally driving gender parity, and we make that the basis of our investment thesis. Yes, the dollars have, or the rupees have not followed with the robustness we would like them to, but the underpinning is very strong. And it is across not just the entrepreneurial activity, but a greater awareness. We are coming out with a report. I am not at liberty to indicate the studies details, but suffice to say, we've studied even corporations with a measurement score that measures gender equity in corporations, and we will be releasing this in first week April, so stay tuned. But the trends point to some interesting, I wouldn't say easy fixes, but things that can be accomplished through greater transparency. And I'll pause with that.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you for joining. Now, before I end this, I will invite Amit Bhatia to raise a brief vote of thanks to the team. And after that, I have a few words before I close as well. So Amit, over to you.
Thank you again, everyone, for being here. Those of you who joined to hear, all our community leaders and coaches speak about this very important issues. Thank you for sparing time. I do want you to once again know that we all met multiple times over the last 15 months to put this research together. And most of all, this would not have been possible without our own Aspire's team efforts. And Neha herself did a lot of authoring. Prakhar did a lot of authoring. Our marketing team led by Sandhya got all of you here. Ravi handled all the logistics. So these were all people making silent contributions from behind. So thank you all. And Neha, back to you to help us close this.
Thank you, Amit, and thank you all for your participation and for furthering the impact initiatives. I'm delighted you could join us for this special occasion. Please do download the Impact Future Projects FemTech report on Aspire website. So 6 other impact reports were launched in the FinTech, EdTech, wash and waste management, agri-tech, health tech, and what am I missing? Accessibility, disability, and inclusion sectors. They're all available on the website as well. So like Amit had mentioned, at the end of each research report is a list of 100 startups and investors to see the momentum in each idea. So we are here to serve the cause of impact leadership and an impact ecosystem development. To further the impact revolution in India, we are delighted to announce India's first impact education program, which will be from 2nd to 27th of May this year. The Impact Specialist Program is an online executive education program for mid to senior level professionals, those who are passionate about social and environmental impact and looking to learn about the impact economy. The program will be delivered by Professor Dwight Hopkins, the founding director of ESG Research Initiative Center at the University of Chicago, and Amit Bhatia, the founder of Aspire Impact and Aspire Circle. The ISP program is to prepare you for the imminent shift from ESG and sustainability to impact capitalism. The program teaches practical skills to design, build, scale, and manage impact. And it is jointly certified by ESGRIC, University of Chicago, and Aspire Impact. So now I will end today with heartfelt thanks to you all and with a short video on the Impact Specialist Program. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining. And here is a short video for you.
Since the beginning of this century, with the advent of Millennium Development Goals, triple bottom line, principles of responsible investment, and Nobel Prizes for Muhammad Yunus and Al Gore for social entrepreneurship and climate action respectively, we have seen the momentum built around a global impact movement, which will bring measurable impact alongside risk and return to the forefront of business, investment, policy, and consumption decisions.
Some governments will mandate the publication of impact-weighted financial accounts.
This is not a reporting job. If someone offers you a reporting job, it's the wrong job, right? What you really want is a change management job. What you want to do is have the ear of the C-suite to say, what is really happening inside this company that we want to drive? You know, if you look at the way Danone or some of the other, really, really leading companies in this area have done this, it goes straight to the top.
We talk about the Chief Impact Officer. It's the common name, but others may have engagement officers. There are ways to be trained for people who hold that C-suite office. I look forward to being there where we will be launching this training to develop leadership, particularly around chief impact officers and a whole new leadership for the 21st century.
The world needs a new cadre of impact leaders who can be Sherpas in the journey of their organizations, corporations and financial institutions, nonprofits and regulators to ensure compliance, manage ESG, sustainability and impact risks, deliver optimized, impact-weighted profits, manage organizational impact branding, innovate, be future ready, and demonstrate highest levels of global citizenship. They must be able to design, build, scale, and manage impact. They will be the future Chief Impact Officers.
Well, thank you all for joining today. And with this, we are ending our session. Please do go online for the full report. You can download it there. Thank you for joining and have a wonderful day.